Let's imagine, just for a second, that this is the camera feed outside of your office. As part of this hypothetical, you're about to meet a person you've never spoken to before, and they've come for a meeting at your office, and you need to get as far ahead of the game as you possibly can. 7 to 10 seconds. That's all you've got.
Going in.
That's it. How'd you do? Anything? Nothing? Everything? It's the briefest moments that will often yield the most information. It's in these moments that the world passes by, that we feel that we're not being watched. It's in those moments where the truth of any given situation can leak out. Once more.
Going in.
What you actually have here is a head start. You already know some very important information to help you stay ahead of the game. The first thing we can look at is this. Why should a bag be important, you cry? It's the first indicator of dominance towards a person, as in whether they're right-handed or left-handed. We can tell this by the fact that the shoulders aren't being engaged. The control hand takes its purpose. Now, in this situation where we would be going in, if we were going in unannounced, we would use our dominant hand to open the door. As the door is being opened 2 letters into the room, our dominant hand takes control of those possessions that we feel that we need to hang on to. It's an unconscious reaction towards those things that we place an important level of worth upon. Now, to develop our cluster further, a cluster for our purposes here is a number of tells that point in the right direction. So the bigger the cluster, the more certain we are of that piece of information. And our cluster here is coupled up with the direction of her hair. Were it keeled back with the left hand, it would curl round towards the right hand side. Now granted, there are only a few strands that have been pulled round from the front. Everything else is of uniformity down the bottom. But that one bit, though we've been inside and wind can't affect it, that one bit has been under dominant control through the right side. So we already have 2 elements that link up into a right side dominant human. Now, handedness and our gestural hemispheric tendency, by this we literally mean which hemisphere that our gestures tend to lean towards in terms of positivity and negativity, or whatever particular issue it is that we're describing. The only anomaly here is the order of the information that we're talking about. Whether the positive thing comes first and then the negative, or the negative thing and then the positive thing comes first. We can profile it against those actions. As we all know, our dominance tends to lead in terms of an unconscious reaction to the behaviours that are displayed around us. We unconsciously leave our drinks towards our dominant side when it's on a table. We unconsciously point the handles of the cups in that direction. So too can be said of the way that we start to illustrate our conversations. It will go dominant side first. Now, this is something that we can factor into the development of our baseline the further we go on, but this is information that we can prepare ourselves with ahead of time, only in this 8-second window that we have here. So already we've got information to work with regard to handedness and their gestural hemispheric tendency. Now, what the bag also indicates is an idea of their mood, how their internal telemetrics might be at that given time that they have come to that meeting with you, denoted again by the bag. Now, a bag with the shoulder attachments is bought for that purpose, to use as the shoulder attachments in order to keep the hands free. The fact that this one isn't being used denotes a sense of urgency, as in it would just be easier to keep it there because it will be only be coming off my shoulders shortly. So we all know that when we feel a particular mood, it's a genuine thing and it's not just something we can snap off of. So this indicates not only has she arrived by car, be that an Uber or a taxi or her own, but that she's got out and this sense of urgency has been brought along with it, just to carry the bag and get in there. Were the mode of transport different, be it a bus or the tube or walking, there is more room to have the bag on because the journey's longer. So we know about her internal state at that moment in time. This gives us a sense of the journey that she's been on. That sense of urgency doesn't come without cause. So there will be something that's happened in order to give her that sense of delay, whether it's perceived or otherwise. There will be something that's been the catalytic converter to get that going. So we know then that we're more than likely going to be dealing with a situation that she can talk about, that we can develop rapport levels from. It gives us a strong inclination towards either a pity need or a strength need, depending upon how she talks about it. Granted, the other 6 are still on the table, but the pity and strength needs are the most prevalent with those type of scenarios. So there is another piece of information right there. There are several other options that we can look for confirmation for with the development of our baseline to make sure that we are controlling this environment. We know already, based upon that 8-second introduction, that that their heart rate will be elevated slightly. We all know from experiencing that an elevated heart rate means things are pumping quicker, so our internal temperature is going to be slightly higher. With men, what tends to happen is we perspire. With women as well, but with men it's more prevalent to make them uncomfortable and cause the additional leakages that you see in the video itself. Did you catch the honest body part leaking that? Right there. Now, what's an interesting logical thought pattern here is that she could just be cleaning her shoes. There is no doormat, so arguably to do that on a carpet would denote a certain defamatory sense of how they view you, that they would do that right outside your office. So this is an indicator of a restless leg. We all know that our limbic system, our paleomammalian brain, it governs the way that we feel. And the way that we feel is intrinsically related to our ergonomics. We feel angry, we talk about people getting flushed. We feel mithered through this urgency, and it leaks out. The weight drops towards the dominant side, and our honest body parts, the feet, because they are furthest away from motor control, leak this out. So there's two elements now to that sense of urgency that you have to deal with. So there's an increased chance for a warmth to her person. How can we control that with the environment that we are bringing her into in order to make sure that we can control her mood and therefore her thoughts, possibly her actions as well? Just from those 8 seconds. It's insane, right? So in viewing the other side of it here, we get to see how we can put it to use. First things first is you notice that he stepped to his deep right. He's already opened the door far enough for any person to comfortably wander in, but he's positioned himself further to the right-hand side in order to start baselining his potential for positive outlooks within her gestural hemispheric tendency. What we can test for here as well is real or fake smiling, or Duchenne smiling, skin temperature, and who's leading, and how that's going to affect the environment from there. So if we go right back and build this up to here, let's look at those smiles. Now here is the scenario that we can check for a response to an eyebrow flash. An eyebrow flash is a way to gauge the level of interest from the person that you're talking to, whether they are responding to you in a positive sense. We do this, and if it's reciprocated, then we're open for business. There is no eyebrow flash here. However, we get some very deep, genuine smiles. You can see that in slow motion here. The action right here in the orbicularis oculi, crow's feet. That's the way to differentiate between a fake and a real smile. The action in these muscles right here cannot be faked. Now, with big smiles, whether they're fake or otherwise, our cheekbones, our cheek muscles as well, might do some of the work here to indicate that. However, that's just a squishing of the skin. The wrinkling of the crow's feet will come up with the angles. All three, like a crow's foot, right here. Real or fake smiling, or Duchenne smiling. That way you can factor that in alongside your profile that you're developing here. If we go back to the moment of contact, door opens, hands 1, 2, 2 good beats with which to check her temperature. If that's warm, we can control that then in the environment. If that's cold, that raises new questions about why, anthropologically speaking, in terms of the Darwinian fight or flight syndrome, why is that blood flushing to her core to protect herself? Why is she preparing for flight? Now, from these types of close quarter scenarios, we can also get a chance to read pupillary movements. Pupillary movements are a way to gauge for a positive outlook in the person that you're speaking to and how they receive you, whether that be positively or negatively. We know that our pupils constrict during the moments of seeing things that we don't like or feel negatively towards, and they dilate during the opposite. Now, we can therefore control this again in our environment with the way that our pupils react to light. So we can position them in a way to gauge their pupillary movements, or we can control that in the surroundings to make sure that the pupillary movements that we are reading are not a response to any light source, they are a response to their internal state. So in the end, this 8-second moment and then the 5 seconds afterwards, we are hopefully turning this into this. Doesn't that seem like a superpower worth developing?